All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, viewers and listeners. Welcome to the Playbook of the Wealthy podcast. My name is Dave Grant. My co-host is Heather Townsend, as always, and we are talking about how our clients have gotten wealthy and what that all means. So before we jump in, let's go through our disclaimers. All opinions expressed by Dave Grant and Heather Townsend are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the views of their respective wealth management firms. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for investment decisions. Nothing in this material constitutes a solicitation for the sale or purchase of any securities. Clients of Retirement Matters and Townsend Financial may maintain positions in the securities discussed in this podcast. So if you listened to this podcast before, you know my male hero is Joey Tribbiani. That's the first section of our podcast. It's called How You Doing? So Heather, how you doing?
I should make you say how you doing like he says how you. Come on.
Dang it.
You should do it. Will you do it?
Of course. How you doing?
I haven't watched it in so long. I don't know if that was a good one, Dave. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, I'm glad you haven't watched it because now that is an amazing impression. And
I'm going to feel that.
It's
Great.
Probably not.
Okay. How are you doing?
I asked you first.
I'm doing good. I'm kind of in this season with my practice right now of I'm just kind of like, I went through a lot of growth and I'm in this, I just want to service my clients really well. I just want to improve processes. Like I feel like this, I just want to settle kind of phase. I go through these phases sometimes. I know I need to hire like my first real full-time hire. I have a lot of contractors. And just going through that and thinking through that and doing it hopefully in the right way so that it improves client experience and service as well as gives me more space. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to it in a way. I like when I go through these phases, like I just know I need it. I need a good few months of like, I won't take on new clients. I got done with like my last financial plan for a new client and hopefully I won't have to do one for another like 3 months. So, I'm doing good. I feel like I'm in a settle phase right now. How are you doing?
Things are good. I made it very public to my clients this week exactly what I want to do with my practice and, assured their fears that things aren't going to change on their end. But, for listeners and viewers, if you viewed other episodes of this, my public mandate to my clients is I wanted to donate $100,000 a year, but I need my business to grow in order to do that. So, my brain's been worrying about, well, how do I do that? Realize I don't have enough time based on all the marketing efforts I want to do. So after announcing that to clients, I then hired a virtual assistant who is going to be working with marketing for me. So they're not going to do any planning work yet, but they're going to be in the background of, okay, I need this edited, I need this uploaded, I need this saved here. And thankfully they're a video editor and manage social media, so they'll be able to do all of it.
Oh, that's amazing. Good for you. How did you find, so you actually found the person?
Yes. They work at it's a company, it's an agency that does stuff for advisors. But this person in particular was, all I do is marketing. And if you need help with the planning side, someone else will do that. But for marketing, it's just me. So I'm like, sold.
My coach always tells me like hire, like business owners a lot of time try to combine jobs, right? Like, so in our world, for example, like what an admin client service specialist does versus what a paraplanner does are very different. She's like, hire people for their specialty and keep them in the lane. It doesn't work a lot of times to like cross over. So that's really smart that you just like marketing. I think that that's like really smart that you're not trying to have her do marketing and then, or him, like marketing and then, I don't know, forms and then paraplanning stuff. Like that normally is where things crumble, is what I've heard.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for it because it's going to give me a lot of time, which in turn will enable me to do more content creation, which I'm excited for. And then we'll be able to pass that off as they then have more and more stuff to do. And hopefully that leads to more clients, which means I can pay them to do more as I create more. And it creates this huge snowball rolling down this hill. And we'll see where it ends up.
All right.
All right, well, let's jump in. So
Yeah, I'm ready.
let's dive in to how our clients have gotten wealthy.
I'm so excited for this. Um, all right. So I think a lot of people wonder, right, Dave, like, how do people get wealthy? What is the definition of wealthy? And I mean, with where our minimums are in our firms, like mine is 20,000 a year, 3 million of net worth. You know, people have already had to grow wealth and are normally very wealthy when they come through our doors, right?
Yeah.
So I was curious, what is the definition in the news, or what do people think? What is the actual true definition of wealthy? So the definition of high net worth is 1 million in liquid assets after liabilities, so after debts. And I think that's really important because the traditional or the average American, I will say, most of their wealth is in their house. Wouldn't you say, especially after the COVID boom, and people include it. But that's not what high net worth is. High net worth is 1 million in liquid assets, meaning outside of your home. That's not liquid. So, and I think having 1 million in liquid assets, that really starts changing the game, which I'm going to talk about. Okay, ultra high net worth. What do you think it is? Ultra high net worth.
I'll go 20x that, 20 million liquid.
30.
That's a big jump from 1 to 30.
Oh, well, so of course, this is a little funny. So there's an in-between, right? Because of the jump. So there's an in-between term for this.
Okay.
Multi-tier millionaire or very high net worth is between the 5 and 30. So you're an in-betweener, basically, at that point.
By the way, awesome comedy show from England, The In-Betweeners, if you haven't seen it. Just sorry. Back to what you were saying.
I have never heard of that. Okay. So that is the definition of wealthy. So you start at 1 million in liquid. You are an in-betweener of if you're in 5 to 30 of net worth, and then at 30 million and above, you are ultra. What do you think the top 1% of income is in the US in 2024?
Man, $450,000 a year.
No, this one actually surprised me. 788,000.
So that's taking data across the country.
Yep.
How does that work with, high earners like on the coasts, and then you've got Midwest?
Well, now I'll have to go research that. I don't know.
Sorry.
I didn't research the graph. I was just more curious what the top 1% of earners is. But here's what's even more interesting. What's the top 1% by net worth?
Top 1% of net worth? 25 million. I don't know.
13.6. Very random number.
Overshot.
That one, actually, I was like, okay, you're making 788 if you're in the top 1% of earners, but you're in the top 1% of net worth if you have 13.6, which is what, 14x, 15, 20x the 1% of earners. So, I mean, it's kind of going to go into when we talk about how our clients got wealthy, but I started thinking, I'm like, well, that's compounding money, right? If you invest it in once you're wealthy, if you do the right things, it just keeps growing.
Sure. Also shows you that the people who earn a lot aren't necessarily wealthy by other metrics. They may earn a lot, but they might not have a lot.
Oh, I've seen that all day long, right? We know those stories. Don't you have some US wealth stats too? Aren't you going to bring me some? Are you going to?
I'm here for the visual learner today. So let's start throwing up some images. So this is US wealth by generation. So if you look at this and you say, okay, if I'm comparing, who is the wealthiest generation here? Well, it's not actually the people who've been alive the longest. It's actually the boomers who are the wealthiest generation. They have $76.2 trillion as of the last quarter of 2023. So it's a little bit outdated, but this survey was done by the Federal Reserve in May of 24, which is interesting because you think, well, why is why are the people who are older than them not wealthier? So you've got the silent generation, they're actually third. Millennials are obviously going to be last because they're the youngest. And then you've got Gen X who are second. But a lot of that boomer generation has been due to the stock market and due to the real estate market. They've been investing in a time where money has typically just gone up. Silent generation, not so much, because you've had a lot of bumps in the road there. And, they're born before 1946. A lot of those are depression babies or coming out of the depression babies, and there's a lot of fear there.
That's what
So
I was going to ask. I was like, did they go through the depression? Because when you read about the depression and you study it on the stock market chart, that's like nothing, like in my eyes, that's like nothing like 2008, 2009. The Great Depression is a whole different,
it's not.
like, no.
Yeah,
And
my wife's grandma was alive, and I had a conversation with her probably 7 years ago now. And so she was a depression baby, and she kept all of her monies in CDs, and that was it. She had CDs and a pension. She's like, I'm not investing because it will just disappear. And that was based in growing up in the depression. It was wild. And she's gone through so many stock market booms and just doesn't trust any of it.
sad. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Next visual chart.
Okay.
Let's talk about how wealth is distributed in the United States. So you've got the wealthy people, with boomers kind of topping that list. But let's kind of look at it, how does this wealth get distributed? So looking at Dan Ariely from Duke, Harvard Business School, from Michael Norton. This is coming from Mother Jones, which is an independent journalist outlet. So if we're looking at the actual distribution of wealth, it is far more skewed than we think it is. So yes, boomers have money, but let's look at how skewed it is. The top 20% of people in the country have over 80% of the wealth.
Oh, gosh.
If you ask a general American or average American, they think it's 60%. And we would love to be, based on this bottom line, we'd love to be in a socialist economy, and we'd love it to be 20 to 30%. That's never, ever going to happen because we're a capitalist economy. It's always going to go and be skewed. So what do you think about that chart?
I kind of get it. I don't love it. I'm like, oh gosh, like, of course, the people that are like really struggling that we know, I'm like, gosh, if you just took a little bit over here and right, like just transferred it a little bit more opportunity. But I get why. I see it. My husband always said, like, he always told me when we were building wealth a while back, he's like, once we get the first million, just watch. And it was so true. I see it with my clients. I see it with myself. Like, once you get over that high net worth 1 million, you just have so much money compounding at that time, right? Like the stock market in 1 year goes up 10%. You just made $100,000, right?
Yeah.
You like the stock market goes up 20, you made $200,000, right? And then you're also adding your peace of mind changes. Like it gets exponentially greater as well. So, imagine if you are in that top 20% of wealth and the stock market goes up 10%, or your investments go up 10%, your wealth growth is like exponentially even bigger. Like it just keeps, do you get what I'm saying? Like the 1 millionaires make like 100,000, they're making like another $1 billion, for example, right? You get what I'm saying? Like there's, the gap just keeps widening. That's the beauty of compounding money, and it's also not, right?
Yeah. For people starting out, that first 100,000 seems impossible. And then, like you said, it just starts to get a little bit easier over time. And then I do think that million is that inflection point of, okay, now this money's going to really work for itself. And like you said, if you do 10% in the stock market 1 year, if you're saving $100,000, that's awesome. But you did nothing except hold a diversified portfolio and you got 100,000. That's way easier than trying to save 100,000 out of your income. So we talked about the 1% in terms of income. Who are they? So this is something that I did not expect in this chart. So we're talking about the occupation of taxpayers in the top percent of income. Business owners are called entrepreneurs here, they are not really in this list. It's the executives, it's the managers and supervisors who are leading teams in large companies. They are 30% of the 1%. And then I think it's going to be, okay, doctors, people working in finance, and lawyers make up the next three. That's to be expected. But for executives to be 30% of the top 1%, I was surprised. I thought business owners would be a lot higher than that.
You know what? When I think about this, though, how many businesses fail, right?
Ooh.
Like, so if you're taking the average, if you're successful in business, you can definitely make more than executives, right? We've seen that. But there's risk. It's sometimes not steady income. Like executives, I feel like is a lot more steady. You can kind of count on it, right?
True.
But I am surprised. And maybe because also business owners' earnings sometimes really come on exit upon sale, not earnings. That's the only other thing I can think of. But like based on what I see with my clientele and where their wealth comes, like that blows my mind.
Yeah, it's way harder than I thought. And, if you're looking at this chart, you have to feel sorry for the pilots. 0.2% of them in the 1%. They're a dying breed. They're just, if you see a pilot, give them a hug. Anyway, moving on from that.
Well, I really thought that's sad.
All right, charts are done. If you're listening to the podcast, I'm sure that was frustrating because you're like, I can't see the picture. Well, watch us on YouTube.
Yeah, but you did a good job describing because I can't see the charts right now. And I knew what you were talking about. So I thought it was good. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So, Dave, I think we should share because I think it's just fascinating. I actually want to hear your answer. How our two wealthiest clients, how did they get wealthy?
All right. You want me to start?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have a client who worked for one of the major airlines in the technology and marketing division. They built something for the airline that the airline didn't want to use. It actually got bought by Google. Google paid that whole team to come with them with that technology and paid them all in Google stock. The rest of the story is kind of, what's going to happen. They left that Google stock alone. They let it grow, and the rest is history. So they pretty much left it alone for 10, 15 years and then started selling it as they hit closer to retirement. And they stayed wealthy. They got wealthy by, this is an interesting quote that I love. A lot of people get wealthy by concentration. The majority stay wealthy by diversification.
Yes.
So that's their journey. And the other one was very much the same. It was working at one company for their whole life. They got stock in that company and they held it. So not necessarily the course of action that we give people in terms of diversifying away. They held it knowing that the company, if it did well, they would be very well compensated if they held the stock. And so they did that throughout their whole career. They just held that company stock and didn't sell it, even in retirement. And they are just holding it. Now it's part of their inheritance to their heirs. They have money elsewhere. But, it was...
Wait, what is the percentage of this company stock of their overall portfolio?
As I started working with them, it was probably about 40%.
Okay, where is it now?
Well, now it doesn't count because we don't intend on using it to live on. It's just part of the inheritance.
Okay, so that's why it doesn't matter. Now that percent doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're independently wealthy without it.
That's a hard one. I had a client that I really struggled with that. They had company stock. It was actually around the same percentage, 40% when they came to me. And it had outperformed the S&P, just like Google, right? Like that's the hard conversation. And I mean, it's the honest conversation I have with them. I was like, I can't promise that, if we diversify, that it's going to outperform this stock because it hasn't. But are you okay if if something happens with the company like Enron, or because I got to look up these stats, but like you think of the S&P 500, which is the top, 500 companies by market weight in the US. If you go back and look at what is the list of companies that was in the S&P in the 80s compared to today, drastically different list, right? So my question to my clients always is, are you going to know when to pull out? That's the hard question. And, when I had these conversations, my client was good with, no, we don't want to take that risk because we'd rather retire and I want to be able to sleep at night. Still, right at this moment, they would have outperformed more if we didn't diversify, but they're retired and they're living their best life. It's hard. There's no easy answers to that one.
What about your clients?
I mean, we have different clients, right? So, but mine are definitely both businesses. They started businesses and have grown that business, continue growing those businesses. Their business valuation is a significant portion of their business. But what I love about these two clients is they are diversified outside of their business. Like they get it. So it's still a huge valuation, their business, absolutely. But they own office buildings, right? They own real estate. They have liquid investments, right? We have like the brokerage account and the 401k and all of that. They're very diversified. So it's kind of like why the wealthy always stay wealthy is because they don't have all their eggs in one basket.
For sure.
So they have this business that's giving them great income. And then they have all these investments that are also growing. So they're taking the profits out of the business and diversifying outside of the business. So that's really my wealthiest two clients are from growing businesses.
So they've both grown businesses and they've taken the money out from income and diversified it away.
Yeah, but they still have the businesses. We haven't exited yet. And I want to, first to go back really quick that I want to end on this point. And then I want to define what wealthy is really quick. And I more mean it from it not, because it's not a number is what I've realized. But what I will say to our listeners, and I want you to pay really close attention and think about this for a second. No one has gotten wealthy with money just in a bank account. Do you know anyone, Dave?
No.
Yeah. What do you have to do? You got to take some risk. You got to invest, whether it's in yourself, in a business, in the stock market, in real estate. They've invested. Every single person that I know that has become wealthy invested in something. Okay.
My mom's grandma did not get wealthy through CDs.
No.
If she'd invested, it would have been exponentially higher.
Yeah. So I'm going to leave that there. But I want to know, what is wealthy to you? Define it to you. What does it look like to you? You're
going to hate my answer. You're going to absolutely hate it.
Okay.
Because you hate all these answers I have.
I've had more coffee too. For the listeners, if I have a lot of energy today, I have almost had an entire French press to myself because my husband is out of town. So sorry.
All right. So obviously wealth is to some degree the amount of money you have and the amount of money you've got. But it's going to sound really cheesy. To me, wealth is health. If you don't have a healthy lifestyle or a healthy body to enjoy everything, then your money means absolutely nothing.
Oh, of course. So now I can't give, like, of course. That's like number one. We should just put that as that's a given. Like that's
you can't say that. You can't say it's a given. That was my answer.
Fine. I know, but like it is true. Like 120, like everything I say after doesn't matter in my answer, because if there's no health, you're dead right. There's no, the best way to put this that someone said to me, or I read this somewhere, was, would you trade right now to be 80 years old for $50 million? No. Like, no. Absolutely fluffing not. I don't know anyone that would say yes unless they were 85 years old.
True.
Right? But like, you know, like, or 81 or whatever, right? But, or 79 maybe, I don't know. But point being is, if you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, like no amount of money is going to like give you time. Time and health are your most like valuable assets for sure.
Yeah. I mean, if you wanted a numerical number from me, though, so what do I think wealthy is? And it's interesting because I love Reddit forums, and that answer gets thrown around all over the place. And so, like, what would you do if you won the lottery? What would you do with 10 million? What would you do with 100 million?
I do not want to win the lottery.
And then it becomes the answers are all the same once you get above a certain number. So for me, it's, well, how much income is going to be generated if I have 10 million? If it's the back of the napkin math of 4 to 5%, or we're looking at $400,000 to $500,000 a year. Is that enough for me to live the life I want? Let's say it is. So then my number is $10 million. But you fill in the gap as to what your number is and what type of income you need.
My number, I like 10. 10 feels like real wealthy to me. I like 10. 10 is a good number. 20 is like, oh yeah. Like, I think inflation did that. It used to be 10, now it's 20. Maybe 15. We'll go 15. But wealthy to me isn't really a number, weirdly enough. It's a vision I have. So there was this family that lived next door to me that they lived life to the fullest. So he was a business owner.
Mm-hmm.
They lived in a small house. So we lived in this neighborhood that was gated, country club lifestyle. But our street was the tiny houses among all the mansions. Okay. So could they afforded the huge mansion? Absolutely. But they lived in this smaller house. They had people come to their house to detail their cars once a week. They had the fanciest cars with the best rims. They had the black Amex. They traveled everywhere and did whatever the fluff they wanted to do, whenever they wanted. They had friends. They had community, they had health, and their house was decorated. They had all their needs met, and they were wonderful people. Mm. And I noticed myself as I live in this like 3-bedroom house with twins. My husband's desk is in the office. I'm about to spend a stupid amount of money on a kitchen remodel. I watch myself emulating them. Like, that's my image of wealth. Like, I want to be able to do what I want when I want, not have to worry about my mortgage payment, like be healthy, have a great community, have nice cars, of course, and have that really like tight-knit family dynamic. Like, I mean, and they didn't work that much either. I mean, he owned a business, but he maybe went in a few hours a week and had great people under him. Now, I'm not going to get by that because I care about my clients too much. I don't think I could get away with like 3 or 4 hours of working a week, but maybe 10 to 20 one day. But I don't know. I have this vision. I'm on my way. Definitely not there yet. But
yeah. So I think wealth has got that. There's all that different parameters to it. So you got the health, you've got time, freedom. And if you don't have, I mean, money's going to be one of the base layers of that, because if you don't have money, you don't have the rest. So I think once you get to that certain point of, okay, money is now affording me to buy time back by doing whatever, hiring people to do certain things or XYZ, which then gives me the freedom, which then gives me the peace of mind. So I think there's that base level of, well, wealth is money, but then when you really round it out, the way you get, the optimal level of wealth, it's everything that wealth can buy you.
What would you do? Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
It's the coffee. Right. I know. I'm sorry.
All right, go for it. Do the first question. No, okay. I'll do the first question.
Okay, you do the first question. Go, go, go.
Okay. All right. So our family has always been wealthy, and I've been receiving gifts each year from each of my parents and grandparents since I was born. I, 27 female, am now looking to purchase my own home. My budget will be $1 million in a middle cost of living part of the country. My friends don't know about this money, but once I purchase the house, they will. How do I tackle this changing friend dynamic?
I've talked about this a little bit. like, do you, man or girl, but I should not say man. I need to stop that. Do you, just do you, like, I think if we keep worrying about what people think, I actually do that sometimes. Like I suffer from that now. I feel like as a financial planner, people look at me a lot in what do I do? And so I'm scared sometimes to make a big move or buy a fancy car because I'm like, oh boy, like the judgment.
Mm-hmm.
But real happiness comes in just do what the fluff you want to do. Like that's what I tell my clients to do. Like you got to stop caring. And if your friends treat you differently because you can afford a nice house and you came from family money, like they're not your real friends. Now, if you put it in their face, if you say things like, oh, well, I don't have to worry about a mortgage because, my family gave me money. Well, yeah, I wouldn't want to be friends with you either. But if you're just like, this is my house, I was lucky to have some money. Let's hang out at my house because I have the bigger house and it's easier for everyone. Like, who cares?
Mm-hmm.
I think people need to start talking about money and sharing too. I think it's like this faux pas in society. Like too much emotion is wrapped around money. Too much value is wrapped around money.
Yeah, this is interesting given the age as well. $1 million in a middle cost of living, that's going to be an epic house. But you're 27, and so your friends are kind of getting on that career track. They're, a few years out of school, and they're starting, maybe getting some traction in their career. I agree with you. You will definitely know who your friends are as soon as you pull the trigger on that purchase. Some are going to get jealous and not want to hang out with you anymore, and others won't care. For me, I would approach this before you buy the house. Grab that core group of friends that you actually care about, their opinion, and just sit them down and say, okay, here's my situation. I'm going to be buying a house. I'm able to buy an expensive house comparative to what we can all typically afford in our typical lives. But I want to make this part of our experience. If we're going to have a Christmas holiday, let's have it at my house. Let's go all out. Like if you want to come and use my pool, just give me a call. Come and use my pool, please. Because if I buy this house and I'm in it alone, like we've talked about before, that's not wealthy. You just have a big house. If you have friends that want to come over and hang out in your big house, now you're rounding out that bigger picture of wealth. So just be open about it, like you said, and just have people aware of what's going on.
And like to end this, what I actually love about this for them is like, I always say I want to be surrounded by the people that aren't jealous, right? Like that's growth I've had to do in myself. If something really good happens to one of my friends or another advisor or whatever, instead of being jealous, I'm genuinely happy for them. And I'm like, great, I want to surround myself with people that are where I want to go. Or, instead of being, if I'm jealous, and that means I need to take care of something internally in myself. And I want to be surrounded by people that genuinely cheer me on versus like have jealousy and want to take me back or make me feel bad for my success. You don't want those people in your circle. Okay.
Yeah, it's a level of maturity there that comes with age. It might not be there yet.
Yeah, that's going to be hard. Question 2. My wife, 45, and I, 46. So we're now going 20 years older. Are looking to start giving large amounts of to charity each year in the amount of $150K a year. How do we go about this in the right way? They're you, Dave. They're you.
Yeah. This is weird. But
yeah.
Anyway.
What are you doing, Dave?
I haven't got there yet, but I'm curious to know what the answer is, so I'm well prepared for it.
Okay. So I would tell them to do a donor advised fund. If they have, I obviously want to know what their wealth looks like, right? Like, is that 150,000 of income that you're trying to put away, or do you have appreciated stock? Like you have massive amounts of wealth that's what you're trying to gift away. That I think matters, right? Because two things. Mm-hmm. One, if it's appreciated stock, you definitely want to do a donor advised fund. Though, if you don't have a lot of income, you're limited on the tax deduction because if it's a non-cash donation, so stock, you can only do 30% of your income as a tax deduction. So you're limited. I actually have that with a client this year where I'm looking at Roth conversions because we're limited in their donor advised fund.
Okay.
contribution. If it's cash, then it's 60%. Maybe you don't do a donors advised fund then. I don't know. This one, you kind of need to know you kind of need to know if this is coming from income or if it's coming from, if they have appreciated stock. I think that kind of changes the plan, to be honest.
I agree. Let's assume it's income, just so we can give some concrete answers.
If it's income and they know exactly what the charities would be, I still would do donor advised fund. So you can kind of gift it over time.
Yeah. I would agree with you there. For those of you who do not know what a donor advised fund is, instead of giving money right to charity, you essentially give it to a fund that is set up in your name or your charity's name, and you get the tax deduction up front, but then you get to choose who you give it to at a later point. During that time, you can invest the money and it can grow. So your contribution could be 150, but if you don't donate it, it could be worth 200 if you invested it, and then you get to give all that money away.
It kind of depends though, because the donor advised fund technically controls some of that money. And I've had a few clients have a headache. I'm going to try out Schwab with this next client. We're going to move their donor advised fund. So I'll stand by on that. Honestly, if they're going to keep doing it every year and they know exactly, maybe for example, it's, I don't know, one charity they have in mind. They're not going to try to give it to 20. Maybe they just do it every year, honestly.
Sure.
Yeah. This was an interesting one. Need more information, but those are some things to think about. Question 3. I am 30 and soon to be getting a large promotion at work. Awesome. It will take my cash compensation from $145 a year, $145,000 to $275 if I hit the easy to me sales targets. I don't need anything else in my life financially. Oh, this is your client. This is definitely a Dave person. How can I use this extra 130 to increase my wealth? Oh, I love this. This was so easy for me. I wrote it. I was just like, okay, can I just say it? You can tell I've had too much coffee. Obviously, they're starting to get in a higher tax bracket. They didn't mention a spouse, so I'm going to assume single with 275 salary, so a higher tax bracket. So I'd max out 401k pre-tax. If they don't have any traditional IRA balances, I'd do backdoor Roth every year. If we can, I'd max out an HSA and invest it. I'd put remaining in brokerage. I'd also love to life plan them and find out okay, are you sure there's not something else you need financially in your life? Do you have some dream that you're too scared to say? Do you want some real estate? Or do you want complete passive investments? Do you want to get some access to some people? Or some knowledge and skills to invest in? Because they also asked, how do I increase my wealth? And sometimes, like we've talked, increasing wealth isn't just growing investments. It's also balancing with what's your wealthy life? And sometimes access to community, access to concierge medicine, access, knowledge, skills, making your life easier. I don't know. That's where I ended. I was like, what else? What do you have to say on that? Do you like that plan? Huh, Dave?
I do like it. I think going back to that rounding out wealth, I like that part of, yes, you can start to increase your financial wealth with doing all these different strategies, but what actually gets you to be that more well-rounded, wealthy person? Are you going to buy back your time? Are you going to pay for a housekeeper? Are you going to pay for someone to walk your dog? If you love your dog and you love walking your dog and getting out in nature, don't do that. If you really don't like it, because it could be wintertime and it's freezing cold, pay for a dog walker. All those
Dave,
kind of things
I think you need to pay for a dog walker. I just got, Okay, keep
6 months out, 8 months out the year, I love it. The rest,
I know,
she gets fat, so it doesn't work.
Take her to the mall. Home Depot. Can't you walk your dog in Home Depot or something? I heard about this.
So I have a mini golden doodle who loves people and is very anxious at the same time. So she would be running up to people to say hi, but also running away from the person behind her. It would be like an ADHD schizophrenic nightmare in that store, and I would just want to leave. It would be
Can you
terrible.
please do this for me one time this winter, please, and then report back. Just come
And just
on.
video it.
Yeah, please. Okay.
Um,
Okay. I feel like we got that one. You agree?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Give some money away. Like, help some people out.
Yeah.
Because if you got a lot extra, that's going to really make you feel wealthy and feel good about yourself too.
You know what?
All right. So now we're at the end of our podcast. This is our section called Highlights, where we talk about our personal win of the week. It's not business related. So I'll shoot off and go first. So our family does a lot of travel sports. We probably have about 2 weeks in the whole year where we get to vacation and do something not sports related. So we just finished laying out our plans to go to LA on our next family trip. And it was all done by points, which I'm kind of happy about because travel got really expensive during inflation times. It really sucked. So we're going to LA. We're going for 6 days. Going to go do Universal, the beach, Hollywood, all the touristy stuff. And that was my 14-year-old's pick of where he wanted to go.
That's cool. I can't wait till my kids are old enough to be like, where do you want to go? And they pick. Like, I actually really look forward to that.
Anyway, your personal win, your highlight for the week.
Okay, mine's kind of small, but it's a huge highlight for me. If anyone knows me, I took a nap for the first time while my girls took a nap this past weekend. It
Wow.
was amazing. Like, absolutely amazing. There's just no words. Like, I don't know if I'll find that time again. I don't know if I'll get my body to calm down and like have the space to do that again anytime soon. But all I will say is it was amazing. And I will end
Now,
on
did you
that.
do that when they were newborns? Like you slept when they slept?
No, that's what I'm saying. This is why this is amazing. No, they are 3.5 years old, and this was the first time I have done this. I was pumping for twins. That might be TMI, but there was no like napping was like pump time. Like there was
Okay.
And then like laundry, and then I don't know, brush your teeth, and that was just an insane time the first year.
We're done. Thank you for listening to this episode of Playbook of the Wealthy. You can find us on whichever platform you listen to podcasts, and the video version of the show is on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. If you want to send an email to the show, you can contact us at hello@playbookotw.com. That's how you get your questions on the show. Heather really wants you to send your questions in.
Yes, I
and
do.
If you don't, she will hunt you down.
I love questions.
And we'll see you next time.